Welcome back to First Steps, where we're learning how to follow Jesus step by step and grow in our relationship with God. In this session, we're taking a deeper dive into reading and understanding the Bible. In a previous session, we briefly overviewed the Bible. We talked about how the Bible was written and put together over time. We learned about the major themes of the Bible and what their purposes are. We talked about its historical accuracy and answered if it's reliable and trustworthy. We even briefly talked about 4 things to do with the Bible for life change. Read it, memorize it, speak it, and then live it. And in this session, I want to take a little bit more time to explain how to read the Bible. Can I be honest? The Bible is an intimidating book. And depending on the translation you're reading, it can be incredibly difficult to understand. And if you don't understand it, then you can't apply it. Let's all remember, the Bible was not written just for information, but most importantly, for transformation. The problem is that if you don't understand what you are reading, it will lead to disengagement or misapplication. Disengagement, here's what that is. The truth is nobody likes to read something that they constantly don't understand. And at some point, you'll lose interest, you'll disengage, you'll throw in the towel and give up reading the Bible for yourself altogether. As a result, you revert to only learning from the Bible through second or even third-hand methods. So you go to church, you watch or listen to sermons online, you read Christian books or articles about God, but have decided that the Bible is just too hard for you to understand on your own, so you quit trying. Am I speaking to you today? The other error is misapplication. The truth is that we all have a tendency to pick and choose what we want to apply, when we want to apply it, and how we apply it. But if you have a wrong interpretation of the verses you're reading, you can end up applying it in ways that God never intended, and this can be a dangerous combination. On one hand, if you're misapplying the Bible to your life, its commands can become burdensome, like a list of do's and don'ts, especially when we don't understand the context or the heart of the Scriptures. And on the other hand, your interpretation of the Bible can become dangerous, leading us to do harm to ourselves or to others, physically or mentally, if we improperly apply the Bible's teachings today. The list is long of cults and religious groups that have misinterpreted the Bible and used it in ways that it was never meant to be used. So what's the solution? The solution is found in learning correct principles and practices of interpretation so that when you read the Bible, you will understand it and apply it rightly to your life today. So in this session, we're going to be learning some basic principles and practices of biblical interpretation. The term used for the practice of reading and interpreting the Bible is hermeneutics. Having a correct hermeneutical approach for reading the Bible helps you start off on the right foot. How you read the Bible matters. For instance, is the Bible meant to be read literally or metaphorically? Is it meant to simply give us a moral principle to follow or specific instructions? Is it allegorical, meaning that its stories and teachings didn't necessarily happen, but rather they point to something greater, a greater truth? Or is it anagogical, meaning that the names and the numbers and the sequences within it provide some sort of secret code to life? Your understanding of what the Bible is impacts how you read it. So let's start there. What is the most correct hermeneutical process in which to read and apply the Bible? Well, the most correct process is the literal approach. In most cases, looking at the Bible with a literal understanding will produce the most accurate interpretation. The most clear, plain meaning is often the most correct. But here's where I could lose you. Reading literally doesn't mean that everything in the Bible is meant to be understood at face value and applied directly. Rather, it means that the most correct way to read the Bible is to understand the author's original and literal intent, how they intended for their words to be clearly understood and applied at that time. And this is where it's important to remind you that this Bible isn't just one long book, but it's a collection of books, including 66 different writings written by more than 40 different authors in 3 different languages on 3 different continents over a time span of more than 1,500 years. These writings also, they vary in style and genre. For instance, some of the books would be categorized as history or biography. Some are poetry or song or wisdom literature. There are many letters in the Bible called epistles, written to specific audiences in the first century. And finally, some of the writings are classified as prophecy or apocalyptic literature, all put together into one book. Now, each style and genre has a different set of guidelines that will help us interpret it properly. So when we approach the Bible, we must understand what type of writing we are reading. Someone once said that the Bible is meant to be read literarily, not just literally. For instance, you don't read history or biography the same way you read poetry. And you wouldn't read prophecy or apocalyptic writings the same way you would read a letter from a friend. And you wouldn't read law the same way you read stories or narrative. We naturally sift and shift between genres of literature today without even realizing it. For example, if I pick up a newspaper, I assume that what I'm reading is factual information and to be taken as the word-for-word literal account of the events. If I pick up a cookbook, I expect there to be a list of steps to help me cook a specific recipe step by step, and it's not just general suggestions to follow. Yet, if I read an online review of a local restaurant, I assume that it's one person's viewpoint and opinion of their experience, and it may not be the full story. It's helpful, but it could be skewed by that person's perspective. Finally, consider this. If I grab a book about zombies from the fictional section of the library, I understand that the author is not recounting actual events that occurred, but rather has cleverly written a document intended for entertainment and not for informational purposes. Now, when we read the Bible, our approach should be the same. We must seek to understand the purpose and style and intent of the author so we can arrive at the correct meaning and application of the passage. Next time you start reading the Bible, ask yourself first, what part of the Bible am I reading? Is this a letter? Is this history? Is this poetry or prophecy? Is this a story or a parable? It just might save you from misapplying what you read.